Hi, I'm Mark Tarmerdahl. I've been a neuroscientist for almost 50 years now. And much of that time I spent trying to understand how the brain worked and how to measure it. And the result of that is a brain gauge. And this is the brain gauge right here. And I'm going to do my best to make a short video. I really stink at not talking much. Okay, so what does the brain gauge do? How does it do it? It's a lab in a mouse that targets brain function, basically. We spent 20 years reducing something that weighed 100 pounds into something the size of a computer mouse. We vibrate the fingertips and we cause all kinds of interactions going on in the brain. These are things we studied in an animal model, and we understand cortical correlates perception pretty well. And then what we do is we measure specific mechanisms, and we take those specific mechanisms and we get numbers for them by doing the test. And those specific mechanisms, uh, well, we have metrics for each of them, and we convert them into brain gauge scores that are kind of easy to interpret. So green is good, red is bad. And if you're just interested in the overall score, which what most people do, they want to see, has somebody recovered? And so you can see, it's scaled pretty simply between 0 and 100, and it tracks up. So that's concussion recovery. The overall platform looks like this. We have a 90-second quick check. Really valuable for looking at before and after a treatment. Standard, and also it can track. Standard is for tracking, progress and looking at really deep, doing a deep dive into specific brain functions. And we have a Brain Gauge Gem for brain training. It really does strengthen those same mechanisms that we identified in the metrics. Now, what exactly are we measuring? We are measuring and testing and training right here. We're looking at the basic building blocks of brain function. And all higher order processes depend on those. So what most people think of when they think of, what they're worried about, like dementia and cognitive processing and things like that, they say, oh, my cognitive processing, executive function is going bad, or and everybody else is doing testing up here. Doesn't work that great. But, if you pick up, if there's anything wrong with the building blocks, it translates up here. You strengthen those building blocks, you help these things up here. So we'll see some examples of that later. But because the brain gauge targets functional building blocks, it's sensitive to most neurological conditions. We've done lots of research. We've got over 120 plus publications, all these different areas like in trauma, neurodegenerative disorders, developmental disorders, pharmacological insults. Anything you think of, if it impacts the brain, it impacts the brain gauge scores. So what did we use it for? What did people use it for? Well, they want to test their brain function. And a lot of people say, oh, early detection of aging effects. That's the obvious one. Or just tracking recovery from some kind of brain injury. Brain training, it aids in recovery and complements treatments, strengthens connectivity, improves reaction time. So old people are slow. Improve their reaction time, they get faster. It helps. Okay. Same with an athletic performance. It helps athletic performance if you're faster, but this is the short version. So anyway, here's some examples of tracking recovery from different events. Concussion. This is subconcussive event, so it's not as bad. Recovers faster. And here's a non-concussive event. This was actually black mold, an environmental toxin. So each time brain gauge was sensitive, and with 90 seconds of testing, you can see how that recovers pretty well. Okay, we look at treatment efficacy. In this case, somebody got hyperbaric treatment, and this is in the same day. They get a hyperbaric treatment right here. 90-second test before, 90-second test after. Each of these shows, each test shows a positive response to that treatment. Same thing here. All these arrows indicate when treatments were applied, when some of the treatments were applied, and you have before and after in the same day. But it's not the short-term trends that I think are important. I think long-term trends are important. Short-term trends do help you with things like dosimetry, but dosimetry is really important. How much do you give somebody? How much treatment do you give them? Um, Another example, the treatment, delivering treatments, you want to do the long-term trend. When is that treatment? What happens when the treatment stopped? Is it time to return to getting more treatments? And so obviously, you shouldn't let things go too far, if you because you can test with the brain gauge at home. Brain gauge, brain case. This is brain training. Brain training improves connectivity and cognitive reserve. There's a lot here to talk about in terms of neuroscience, but here's a quick case study reveal. It's that this person had been to neurologist after neurologist, and they had worked with her, but she had really bad dyslexia, and it caused her, loss of a job. But basically, she started brain training, and when she started brain training, not only did her brain gauge scores got better, but her dyslexia got better. She recalls words faster, has reduced transpositioning of letters, she has improved balance. Okay, none of these things are anything that has to do with the brain gauge testing. Brain gauge testing, remember, goes after these functional building blocks. Language is dependent on those building blocks. You improve the building blocks, you improve performance at the higher levels of processing. It's that simple. So we talk about that in the workshop and the training with the brain gauge. Brain training complements other treatments. All right, here's another case study. And in this case, the 58-year-old female had a sudden onset of memory loss, and then she was put on a ketogenic diet by her clinician for several months. And then, he was tracking her to see if she had any improvements, but then basically had her start brain training to complement the treatment. And when brain training started, not only did her brain gauge scores get better, but symptoms started to resolve. Her memory started getting better. Her her training improved all all the symptoms. And basically, like her partner reported her as being quicker and mentally brighter. And again, these are the things that we test and train, and they have an impact on the higher order function. So there is a lot to talk about with the brain gauge. And the best way to learn about the brain gauge is the brain gauge workshop. We spent an entire day talking about science and the scientific implications of the brain gauge, how it works, why it works, and how to best use this very powerful tool. Anyway, that's all I am going to do today, and I hope you enjoyed it.